did score pretty big in Australia, though, right? I saw you. You had a crazy post of stuff.
Right. Dude, this is the wildest thing. 8 weeks ago, I was back in Australia, just on my usual trip home to see family. Whilst I was there, I had a crazy pick, a bunch of really good sort of 90s band stuff. Now, 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by Troy Diggs, fellow Instagram dealer. I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. Lovely guy, hits me up, says, hey man, I got this lead in Australia and the guy refuses to send photos and I'm sick of dealing with it. Can you help me with it? And we'll figure out a split. I was like, mate, of course, no worries. I called the guy just using the Australian thing. Mate, how's it going? Long ass story short, I flew all the way to Canada, to Australia from Canada last week, and he doesn't exist. And he claimed he had 4,000 dead stock t-shirts from the 1970s to 80s and was giving it to me because he was dying. He's not dying. He claimed he was a millionaire. He's not. He lives in a basement suite, and he has ripped off like 10 people. And I've done a bunch of research, and I did a Zoom call 2 nights ago with all these victims of this pathological, insane psychopath liar's web of lies. I'm working on a mini documentary as we speak on this insane story, and I'm going to drop that next week, and I'll be going on the Coffee and Jay show to talk about it in greater details. Next Friday, I'm going to drop it and talk about it. I promise you, it is the most fucking batshit bananas, insane story.
Coffeezilla of vintage, bro.
This is what I said. And I said, listen, someone's got to step up, because I'll tell you this much. We know these scams are out there. We know they're getting worse. The bootleg market is fucking out of control. Someone's got to fly over to Thailand and go, right, what the fuck is going on? Can I talk to someone's boss? Because it's getting crazy, and I just know that if it's not here now, it's 100% coming. Anyway, to be now, speaking of get 'em, we're going to do another double up, because why not? We're doing a kind of horror movie double up here. We've got Wolf with Jack Nicholson, I believe. This kind of faded out tag. We've got XL on it though. It's single all the way around. We've got a trademark to Columbia Pictures, and it's in good condition. Nothing on the back, nice fade, and I just love this. And to go with that, I just figured why not do a 2 for 1. We got this American Werewolf in Paris with the breast hip, large, and on the back we got this crazy wolf graphic with the Eiffel Tower in his mouth, which I've just noticed. Really cool.
That wolf shirt's hard.
It's crazy. Start these at $1, Chris, and you guys do you.
Don't sleep, guys. Let's go. But wow, that's crazy, that whole situation that happened to you, man. That's like some vintage catfish stuff right there.
Dude, so basically, obviously, I do my due diligence. I definitely ask what I think are the right questions before I just stupidly get on a plane and just roll the dice to that level. But like I said, I was asking all the right questions. And the weird thing is, you have to stop in these situations and ask yourself, what is the motivation for the lie? How do you kind of reverse engineer it back to this person to try to understand what were they thinking? How is the scam benefiting them? And I could just never get there. I did. I risked it, and I got on a plane. I get all the way over there, and just excuse after excuse after excuse. At one point, he was getting in a truck and driving 30 boxes with 500 t-shirts per box to my house. And then all of a sudden he has a funeral to go to, which is sad because I thought it was real at the time. It wasn't. But all of this shit, or the whole story, dude, I ended up Zooming this lady that he claimed was his wife. And this lady's 1 or 2 steps away from having to call the cops and put a restraining order on this guy. He's just a complete psychopath that I believe it's his kink that he just gets off on just putting on the lie hat and just having fun fucking with people. The crazy thing is the initial rendezvous point from how he found Troy was, well, Troy a lot of guys puts ads on Facebook. We buy your old t-shirts. And one of those ads just randomly came into the orbit of this crazy old guy named Clive Minshall. And I think that he just sat there and was like, time to have some fun, see? And then the lie got out of hand. And then when I called him, he was like, we got along, dude. We spoke for 6 hours about family and religion and everything. And I really fell for it. I thought he was the sweetest guy. This is just a lovely old guy. And the story he told me was, he's a multi-billionaire. He has waterfront property in Sydney. He's got resorts in Fiji. And he's had 6 heart attacks. And the doctor says the next one's going to take him out. He doesn't want to leave all this shit with with his kids. He doesn't want to burden people with it. He'd rather it go to somebody that's going to enjoy it. And so I was like, man, for sure. Now, keep in mind, this is over the course of like weeks worth of talking to him. And then I was like, okay, listen, man, I hate to ask, but if I'm going to come over, we probably should start talking about money because I've got a budget for 4,000 t-shirts. And he's like, Kirby, I'm giving them to you. I don't need the money, man. That's why I was like, well, I'm definitely coming over. He's like, no, I'll send them to you. I'm like, no. I'm not raised that way. I need to fly over, give you a hug, thank you in person, buy you a nice bottle of scotch or something.
Oh my
yeah,
God, bro. He's the Joker in The Dark Knight. He just wants to see the world burn.
But we're gonna find out.
It's exactly
right?
what
we're
it
gonna
is.
find out who he
and
is.
like part of me, oh, do I know? I that's what I'm saying. I'm doing like a whole mini doc on it. I've got so many people keep coming to the woodworks. I also have a friend back in Australia that works for Channel 7, which is kind of like an NBC type news station. And I was telling her about it. And she's like, this is perfect for a current affair. She's like, put your little story together, send it to me. And if there's enough grit there, we might pick it up from there. Because there's like 10 people that have come out of the woodworks. Like his whole thing is he claims he's a multi-millionaire dying and he's not. It's just this weird
people have
fucking
given him
thing.
money?
So there's a lot of crazy stories. No, it's all just grandiose. Apparently he's a gambling addict. My theory is every now and then he'll win big through the nature of luck. And he will wine and dine, basically, like he'll take some girl out to dinner and wine and dine her and make her believe that he's Mr. Wonderful. But he's just, what's the word? Grooming. He's just grooming them. And then he'll promise them the world, but then just never delivers on it and then just disappears. And
there's just weird people out there, man.
It's really crazy, man. And like, so the biggest fucking craziness of this whole story is the woman that he claimed was his wife was this woman called Kieran Minsall. They share the same last name. She is of no relation, has no idea who this guy is initially. Her story is 3 years ago, he contacted her claiming to be a long lost cousin. She was a bit wary. I was like, went and met him for lunch. He shouts like $1,000 fucking lunch, really extravagant, all expenses paid, blah, 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 blah. Rocks up in a Rolls Royce. Later on, we find out it's all rentals. It's all just this facade. And he lives in like housing estate projects in Australia. So he had a bit of inheritance and he's a crazy gambler. And every time he wins, he uses that money to go and do some pretty woman shit, but can't maintain it because he can't keep up with the Joneses. He's got champagne taste on a beer budget, as my mum will say. And so he's just a fucking crazy person. And the reality is you forget sometimes these people exist.
Bro,
yeah, I got fucked.
That's
but
crazy.
I laugh at that.
Can't wait for the movie.
You gotta laugh though. Like, you gotta laugh, man. Like, fuck, such is life. I'm still alive. And, you know, it was a tax write-off. I got to go home and see my mum. So it's not a complete, you know, you got to find the lemonade and the lemons.
But still getting $200 for fucking wolf shirts.
Exactly. You know, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. Trust me. Like, but it was just the craziest thing was
210 is in. I need that 220. Timer's on. Yeah, the motivation's got to be hard, man, because, and then on top of that, it's so easy to fall into that because you're just thinking like, he's going to give me these teas. The whole time you're blinded by that too. There's that layer.
Well, not only that, but like the believability was he's an older guy and he claimed that he doesn't know how to send photos. And he's also, I'm asking the right questions. Like oh, g'day, Curb. All right, mate. So this box here, oh yeah, looks like about 30. Oh, geez, these are old Sex Pistol shirts. And then I'll be like, okay. And I'm like, how do you have 30? He's like, oh, well, mate, see, the thing is, back in the 70s, I lived in London. Now, from London, I was there. Goes this whole huge story. And he was a session drummer. That's kind of where he fucked up, because I'm a drummer. And I was asking all these drum questions, and he wasn't really answering them right. And I'm like, oh, fuck. But at this stage, I was at the airport. Like, I was talking to him this whole time. It happened so quick. Troy contacted me, and 3 days later, I was straight.
This whole time, Troy was in cahoots, you think?
Troy feels bad. It's like, no, not a...
There you go. That's going to be sold to the Bible for the 210.
Nah,
congrats.
Troy's the biggest legend ever for even, like, passing it on, because Troy didn't know. He's just like, hey, man, this guy refuses to send photos, kind of claiming he's too old. I'm kind of sick of dealing with it. I'm going to pass it on to you. And if it did deliver, if I got there and there was just this, you know, Emerald City at the end of the yellow brick road, I would have hooked Troy up like crazy, obviously, for thanking him for hooking it up. And to me, man, like I've always been the sort of person where I love fairy tales and I live in the what if. And like my wife, who is smart, she was like, well, you for sure shouldn't go because of how dumb and stupid you are. But then I would be like, yeah, that's all well and good, and I understand based on your 95% of evidence, but what you're failing to understand, sweetheart, is the 5%.
What does Troy Diggs think about this whole situation? Does he feel bad? What did he say?
Well, he's more just like, you actually went to like, yeah, dude, I'll follow a lead to the end of the world. And so when I it's taken me so long, but when I piece everything together, it's going to be a big YouTube video. Once you get to the end of it, you will have way more of an understanding, at least I'm trying to create the narrative, where you'll have way more of an understanding of how I arrived at my decision to go over. Because it wasn't just, hey man, I've got this stuff, and then off I went. I really put in the conversational work with asking so many questions. And at the end of the day too, part of this gig, Chris, is you sometimes throw caution to the wind and you get in your car and you drive 3 hours to a garage sale, and sometimes you score and sometimes you don't. Yes, obviously an airplane to the other side of the world is a big risk, but fuck it, mum's there. At the end of the day, I get to get
honestly, it was a risk that you had to take. The gold was looking pretty big. Yeah, that was a lot that he's talking about. Thousands of shirts.
Exactly. And I collect Australian punk shirts, and I'm trying to do this book, and I still have a few holes in my collection, and I'm asking him all these questions. Do you by chance have this band, this band? Oh yeah, mate, I actually toured with that band. There's bound to be someone there. So he's just saying all this shit that I'm like, what would be this guy's motivation for lying? He's not asking for money. There'd be no reason to lie. And then sure enough, just a complete fraudster.
Well, that's nuts, Curb. Hey, it could have been worse though, man. You could have woke up in a hotel bathroom with stitched up on the side because they removed your kidneys or something.
I know, which would be a bit of a waste of time for them because they'd open up and go, oh, these kidneys are
50 is in, guys. I need that 55. Timer's on.
The things that we would do for t-shirts, the things
right?
you wouldn't do is a short list.